and the recording service. Okay, so hopefully you heard that. We are going to be recording. Welcome to the June WebEx again. I apologize for the delay and a little bit of the technical issues. I'm not quite sure what happened, but this seemed to fix it. Prior to re-logging back into WebEx, I was talking about the Minnesota State Cattlemen's meetings that we were going to be having. And most of you, if you weren't able to get into the WebEx, you probably couldn't see the dates and the times. So I wanted to repost this if you were unable to see that. And I'll probably send out an email with these dates and times as well, because we would really like our county feedlot officers to be there. The PCA staff will be presenting, but we will take an opportunity to introduce any county feedlot officers in the room, and also comment that sometimes our county or the county ordinances can be more restrictive or different, and that the cattlemen should speak to their county feedlot officer as well if they are in a delegated county. So that's why we really want to make sure that you guys are aware of these meetings and attending. So are there any other questions about these? I kind of talked a little bit about them before. Okay. I will send this out and share with you the dates and the times via email as well. So with no further ado, I am going to hand over the controls to Kim and get going on our rule conversation. All right.
And you'll need to bear with me. So click on share my desktop?
Yes.
There it is.
And we can see it just fine, so all I have to do is pull up your PowerPoint. If you're not seeing a full screen, you can go to the controls on the top of your page, and on the right-hand side there is a little arrow pointing down. If you click on that and go to View, you can click Fit to Viewer, and it will give you a full screen. And Kim, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We have spent here at the NPC the last almost 2 years now working on a revision to the rule that came about largely because of the changes made during the special session. So somebody doesn't have their mute on and they're giggling.
Shush.
I hope you have had your caffeine for today, because this isn't really very glamorous or exciting, but it's necessary. So anyway, this is going to be very similar to the presentation I gave almost a year ago in Mankato and St. Cloud. But basically, as I said, we decided to change the rules because of the change to the statute 116.07 subpart 7C that occurred during the 2011 special session. And the change was that they changed the statute to say now that it used to be that we had to issue NPDES permits to all CAFOs and all sites that were over 1,000 animal units. Now it says we only are required to issue NPDES permits for feedlots as it is required in the federal law, which means in the federal law they have to apply for an NPDES permit if they are a CAFO that has a discharge. Okay, a producer does have the option, if they are not discharging, of continuing to have coverage under the general NPDES permit. They can choose to do that. And we figured as long as we're going to go through the hassle of a rule revision, we would take the opportunity to add all the other state and federal regulatory changes that have occurred since the rules were last revised in 2000. We've also deleted outdated rules, and we've done some housekeeping and clarification. So just really quick, you don't have to commit this to memory, but I just want you to see where we're done. you send it to the governor's office for preliminary review, then you get a request for comments, and then you develop the rule in Sonar, and these things are done. Right now, we are back at the governor's office waiting for a review, and then also the, what is MMB? They're the budget people. Minnesota Management and Budget, and we've got approval for them. We're still waiting for the governor's office. Today is our 21st day since we sent it to them for review. We're anticipating that we'll hear back. We're hoping to hear back yet this week. And then after that, we do our notice of intent to actually adopt the rules. And that's a formal comment period that we're hoping will start mid-July. And then once we have the notice, then we have all these other processes that are possible. If we do not get a request for a hearing, then it goes to the governor's office again. Then we have to file orders to adopt and back to the governor's office, and then a final notice of adoption. If we do get a hearing, then we have to have the hearing, and the citizens board is involved in that. Then we go back to this, so it gets kind of crazy. We have a staff here that all they do is, their job is rule coordinators. So anytime our agency goes through a rule adoption process, they coordinate all of this part. And I'm very thankful that we have them to do that, so I don't have to deal with it. During the 30-day comment period, the public are going to be notified by publication in the State Register and on the MPCA's website. We'll have email notices through GovDelivery, and also we'll be using the Feedlot update newsletter distribution list to send out the same notices. Basically, it'll be the information for people to tell them how they can get a copy of the revised rules, the statement of need and reasonableness, or the SONAR, and all the other supporting supporting documentation, and then how they can comment. We will also be doing news releases to newspapers and radio stations. And the notice will include, of course, the draft rules and the SONAR, which is the statement of need and reasonableness. And we are developing an email address that is specific to the rule revision where they can send comments to. And that way, any email questions or actual rule comments will not just go to me, they will go to the rest of our rule-making team. And the notice will also explain how to get paper copies of the draft rules and SONAR if you want a hard copy, if you don't have computer access, whatever, and then how to submit comments to us. Okay, next. And the comments must be submitted in writing, but they can be sent via snail mail, by fax, or by email. And persons may also request they can also request, instead of just a comment, they can request a public hearing that will be held in front of an administrative law judge on the proposed rules. And just want to make sure everybody's aware that the comments and the hearing requests are all public information. If we get a request for a public hearing from 25 or more people, and their requests are valid, that means they can't just say, I think you should have a hearing because I think you should. That's not a valid hearing. They have to actually have an issue. Like I said, it'll be held before an administrative law judge. There will be, after that, a post-hearing comment and rebuttal period. And then the ALJ has 30 to 45 days to file a report following the comment and rebuttal period. So even after the hearing, this isn't, there's still more time and process that has to occur. This has been my first actual involvement in the rulemaking process. I wasn't involved in the last one. I was the one that kept the permits going out the door during that process. So it's amazing how much is behind the scenes that people don't see. The really big effects on this process is going to be how it affects the NPDES permitting process as well as the NPDES permits. And of course, it's not just an NPDES permit, it's actually an NPDES SDS permit because those permits contain both federal and state requirements. And what the change was going to happen is any sites that are required to have an NPDES permit because they're a CAFO that discharges to waters of the United States, they will be issued an individual permit because they have a discharge. And then the general NPDES permits will continue to be available for CAFOs who want to continue NPDES coverage, but they don't have a discharge. The reason they would want to continue to have discharge, the big reason is that they still would have the protection that is provided by the Clean Water Act that provides protection for them in the event that there is an accidental discharge, catastrophic event, or something that causes a discharge. They are not subject to citizens' lawsuits, and they're not also in violation for not having a permit, an NPDES permit. NPDES permits are issued for up to 5 years, and that's a federal law requirement. Then the state disposal system permits are required as they have always been since 2000 for all feedlots with 1,000 animal units or more that do not have an NPDES permit coverage. And they are issued for a 10-year period. And we are developing a general permit, and it will be, the public notice for that permit will start once the rule is final. And the format of that permit will be similar to the existing NPDES SDS general permit, but without the things that are specific, the requirements that are specifically from federal rule. So, now the changes. Woohoo! This is just a quick list of the changes that were made specifically to deal with the changes to the statute 116.07 subdivision 7C. And in detail, permit requirements. As I said, NPDES permits and SDS permits are only required, but only going to be required as they are required by federal rules. And the state disposal system permits are for sites that have 1,000 animal units or more, or other. And then also we will continue to also require them as there's 2 or 3 requirements in the existing rule that we're going to keep, such as if they're going to use alternative technologies, they can apply for an SDS permit. And then the requirements pertaining to interim and construction short form permits are unchanged. The schedule for when a permit application is to be submitted really has not changed. But you'll see that we took out the whole section and rewrote it in a different format. So it basically now just says, if you're required to have an NPDES SDS permit, this is when you have to submit the application. If you're required to have an interim permit, this is when you have to submit the application. So we thought it was a little clearer as to those requirements. The way we process permits, the NTCA follows Minnesota Rule 7001 for how we actually process permits for different things, and that applies, for everything. And so bits and pieces of that rule applies to the issuance of NPDES permits and state disposal system permits. So we have incorporated those changes into more the specific requirements from the federal law and Minnesota Rule 7001 into the appropriate places for the NPDES permits and then the state disposal system permits. We've also added the correct references for interim and construction short form permits. They're kind of a different sort of permitting system because we're like the only program here at the MPCA that has those types of permits. And so we wanted to make sure we got the right language into there. Our attorney was very adamant about that. As you know, they can be. We changed the terms there in 7020.2003 for subpart 1. It talks about, you can't discharge to wells and other things, and we specifically identified that it's for subsurface discharges. And then we also said you can't discharge to this and this and this and this or other direct conduits to groundwater. A clarification thing. Subpart 2 talks about the actual discharges from CAFOs and feedlots with 1,000 animal units or more. We clarified that portion, particularly since the discharge from CAFOs only applies to waters of the United States, and not waters of the state. That waters of the United States, because all waters in Minnesota that are waters of the state is a broader category than what is a water of the United States. It gets kind of confusing, but we needed to clarify all of that part.
Is there where's the breakdown there?
Don asked, where's the breakdown in the between waters of the United States and waters of the state? That's a really good question, Don. Since waters of the United States is actually in being discussed in several different lawsuits right now. But basically, things like groundwater is not a water of the United States, but it is a water of the state. Waters, some of the contain wetland areas that do not have outflows are waters of the state and not waters of the United States.
Kim, can I add something to that?
Feel free.
We recently went to a training this past April with EPA, and there was a specific section on waters of the United States. And the neat thing that came out of that is they are trying to be as inclusive as possible with waters of the United States, even within the limitations of what that means. Basically, it's a navigable water for commerce. And so they have a process by which they can make those determinations to see if it qualifies as water of the United States today. The other thing that that I found interesting is tile lines. They count that as connecting to waters of the United States. So I found that kind of interesting. So they are as inclusive as they can be with waters of the U.S.
Right. So,
sorry to interrupt here.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I forgot to say at the beginning that if anybody has questions, just, jump in. Don't worry about being polite or anything, because there's a lot of you out there, and I'd rather you just ask the questions, because if you have the question properly, somebody else does too. Then under subpart 3, that's the part that deals with those sites that would be covered under interim permits and construction short form permits. And there, the change we made was to change to, there's a rule reference to the Minnesota Department of Health rules about the discharge limits, BOD and phosphorus. And the rule that's cited in the MDH rule that is referenced in 7020 is incorrect. So we made that correction. And as a was talking waters of the United States. That's because it's a bigger deal now with the statute change. It says we only issue NPDES permits to those sites that have a discharge to waters of the United States. We wanted to put the actual definition of waters of the United States into the permit. Somebody's got some cool music out there.
Yeah, somebody has put us on hold. I'm finding it. Give me a second, and I'll mute them.
Okay, thanks.
All right, go ahead. They've been found.
Okay. Then there were 3 other changes to statutes that have occurred since 2000. Some of them occurred in the rules were adopted in October of 2000, and some of these statutes were changed in the winter of 2001. So basically the first one is our pasture definition. We are hearing from the Minnesota Cattlemen's Association that this is of great concern to them. Basically, if you look at statutes, there are 2 separate statutes that have been added, and then also our rule, the definition that we have existing in the rules, and all 3 of those items are not quite the same. So we did our best to merge the 2 statutes and our existing rule together so that we kept all of the requirements of all 3 parts, but it's all combined now into our rule. So the statutory parts, I believe, have been added in the last couple of years, and those were largely due to concerns about feeding animals on post-harvest residue. Okay? That's what I get. So we are, like I said, we are anticipating hearing quite a bit from people on that portion. Then the next part, the no permit required, has to do with tenure. I'm getting my rules mixed up. Give me a second. I got to check that real quick. Okay, neighbor notification. I'll talk about that one real quick. While I look for this, the neighbor notification is just exactly what we've been doing. Instead of the 10 days in the rule, it's actually 20 days by statute, and that's what we've been doing. We've just made sure that we've got the correct requirements in the rule now. The shoreline restriction is that there's a requirement that okay, I'm going to go back to no permit required. That we added that requirement that says that a permit is not required for an animal feedlot with more than 10 but less than 50 animal units that is not in a shoreline area. So that's what that's in the statute, so we added that in. Then the shoreline restriction. I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework properly. I apologize.
Well, and just to add to that too, these rules, let me tell you, it has been a very eye-opening experience to go through this, and then also to be able to look at the existing rule and the changed rule and keep it all straight in your head. So I give credit to Kim for how hard she has worked at this.
Basically, the existing rules on that part is the location restrictions and expansion limitations. So it talks about that an animal feedlot or manure storage area located in shoreland has to meet the requirements. Basically, what it says is, currently in the rule it says if it's been unused for less than 10 years, they have a pollution problem. They have to have an interim permit. Anyway, basically it says any feedlot that is not a pollution problem can resume. That I'm getting myself confused here. That has been unused for 10 years or more must not resume operation. That line has been taken out. So, and that's what the shoreline restriction is.
There's a question, Kim, that came in that says no permit is required, even an interim permit for a pollution hazard. I think that's referencing the 7020-0405.
Right. Okay. Basically, what this does is it says if the site has been unused for 10 years or more. Okay. The current rule states if the site has been unused for 10 years or more, they cannot restart the feedlot. It's out of there. What the statute changed it to say is to remove that requirement totally. To say that no matter how long it's been since it was used, you can resume operation of that feedlot. But you do have to apply for any appropriate permit. If they've got a pollution problem, it has to be resolved, etc. So basically, it took out the restrictions on shoreland, repopulating feedlots that are located within shoreland.
And he's going back to the no permit required one. He's talking about the no permit for the 10 to 50 animal units. And actually, there's a policy about that as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe there is. Okay, so let me make sure I get my pages back together. Yeah, these things really sometimes kind of befuddle me sometimes, so I can't imagine how other people feel. But that was part 3. Yeah, they with more than 10 but less than 50 animal units that is not in shoreland. Yeah, basically, like I said, they just said that, or they said is, there was confusion on what was actually meant in the rules about what you could do with shoreland and what you couldn't. So they added this statement that said, you know, look, if you've got 10 to 50 animal units and you're outside of shoreland, you do not need a permit. But if you're within shoreland, it's going to depend upon the facility and what you're doing. If there's a new site, you know, you have to follow the shoreline restrictions. Believe it or not, all of this is explained in the Statement of Need and Reasonableness, which will be available when it goes on public notice, and you can read it and just memorize it to your heart's content. And I think that would be the best way to deal with it.
Okay.
Guys,
I was going to look up that policy as well.
Okay.
Because we've got a policy for interim permits for feedlots under 10 and 50 animal unit thresholds that basically says, let's see, it's referencing Minnesota Statute 166.07, I think that should be 116.07, subdivision 7G, which is the no permit required. States that a feedlot permit is not required for the following feedlot operations: facilities that have a capacity of 10 or less animal units, and facilities that have more than 10 but less than 50 animal units that are not in shoreline. So if you want a copy of the policy, I would be more than happy to send that out. It's also available on our website.
Okay. I'm going to move on, though, if that's okay.
No problem.
We took out a lot of things that were outdated. We removed all references to the level 2 and 3 inventories. There may be 1 or 2 counties out there that are still doing those, but most people are not, so we just took it out. And we took out the reference to the initial registration date. It's over, it's in the past. We also removed all the references to permits issued before October 23rd, 2000, which is the date that the existing rules were officially official. And we removed the section that pertains to interim permits, NPDS permits, and state SDS permits, because those all had an expiration date on them. But we kept the sections on the what we refer to as SWA permits that were issued before 1978, and then the certificates of compliance that were issued from 78 to 2000, because those documents actually don't have an expiration date. So what those rules say is that if you receive those permit documents and you have not made any changes to your operation since those were issued, basically what you need to do, you don't have to apply for a permit, you do need to register if you meet the registration requirements, and you need to operate under the operating requirements that are within the rule, like, you know, land applications, etc. So we felt that the sections for certificates of compliance and SWA permits should be kept. Also out of date was the what to do about permit applications that were submitted before October 23rd of 2000. That we really have gotten processed all those permit applications, so we just axed that part too. We also took out the open lot agreement. It's over and done with. There is a fact sheet that people can reference if they had signed up for the open lot agreement, and how they can maintain the conditions that were part of that. There's also the memorandum of understanding that we have with the Board of Water and Soil Resources and the Department of Ag that also applies to that. So we did not think that we needed to keep this open lot agreement language in the rule any longer. It was just would confuse people. We also did a hatchet job. We axed the existing 3 subparts, 1, 2, and 3, for the unpermitted or non-certified liquid manure storage areas, and added subparts 4 and 5. Apparently, we couldn't just change subparts 1 and 2 and eliminate 3. We had to eliminate all of them because that's how writing rules work. So we've got a new subpart 4 and a new subpart 5. And subpart 4 says you cannot operate an unpermitted or non-certified liquid manure storage area. Period. Number 5 says you can get approval of for using a liquid manure storage area that has never been approved by submitting a report prepared by a design engineer, or providing evidence that the structure is less than 20,000 gallons in capacity. There's some other parts to that get lengthy and detailed, but I can't give you copies of the actual draft rule yet. I tried, wouldn't let me do it. So it's easier once you actually see the rule language and how it's explained in the statement of need and reasonableness to explain how that works now. Okay, we made some housekeeping changes. This is one of the things where our attorney comes into play. There's nothing in the rule that talks about if you've got an existing facility and you make a modification, how the process involved in that. And a modification does include expansions, but it can include other things. It can be, you know, changing the type of animal you have in that particular barn or lot or whatever. It can be a number of things. And so and there are minor modifications and there are major modifications. And kind of a quick and easy way of explaining the difference between a minor and a major modification is, a major modification is any change to an operation that would increase the potential for discharge or emission from the site. And then under the portion of the rule that applies to the county feedlot program, there's that Part 7020-1900, which is a request for a variance, which A, is a stupid place to have put it there, and since we already have information on a variance under 7020.0505, it's redundant. And also, it's caused me a lot of headache, and I think Tracy can verify that whole variance thing in 7020-1900 is just wrong, so we took that out. Okay, another change we made is, as you read the rule, you'll see the word facility frequently throughout the entire rule, and it's meant to refer to animal feedlot or manure storage area. Well, this really upset our attorney, and so we went through and did a word search for facility and replaced it with the term animal feedlot or manure storage area, which really made sentences and paragraphs much longer than they needed to be, and it was very wordy. So we thought that was kind of dumb, and we switched instead to simply adding a definition for the term facility and identify it to mean an animal feedlot with a manure storage area, an animal feedlot, or a manure storage area. And that's it. Okay, another part where our attorney got very involved in was in the processing of applications and permits. There's nothing in the rule that discusses and really nothing specifically in 7001 that specifically addresses the interim permits and construction short form permits that are issued by the counties on what to deal with. Let's say for some reason we get an application from somebody and we deny it for some reason. The person who submitted the application has the legal right for a due process of some sort to contest that decision by the county or the NPCA. And then also, so we added some processes that if a owner of a proposed site has an issue with something the county did, they can bring it to the NPCA, and we would, and then through our process, we would evaluate it and discuss with the county and kind of weigh in on the situation. We really have that ability already, but it's not specifically written down in the rule. So that's kind of what we've added, is just the due process. If we deny and we can deny it without anything else, or deny it and they have to change it, or there's lots of different things. So that's what that's about. And that's something because it really does affect your programs out there, the county feedlot programs. You may or may not want to bring that to the attention of your county attorneys if they want to comment on it. Some clarifications. Liquid manure storage areas. Once again, our attorney was a little bit flummoxed by the fact that we had a whole section in our rules specific to liquid manure storage areas, but we had no definition of what a liquid manure storage area is. So we added the definition. We've also, over the years, have kind of made some decisions with the approval of our management about different things, particularly like settling basins, where you have the runoff from an open lot goes into a settling basin where it may be there for 24, 48 hours before it gets out onto a vegetative treatment area. And so we wrote in the requirements there for alternative design standards. If they're not storing, 14 feet worth of manure in a, multi-million gallon basin, why do they need to have as thick a liner as they do if it's just going to be there for, a day or two? We also added standards for removal of bedrock. We have 2 projects that I know of. One is finished and one is still proposed in southeastern Minnesota in the karst area, where in order to get the separation distance they need from the bottom of the basin to the bedrock, they have to actually remove the bedrock and bring in soil to replace, to build up the depth for separation. So we've put design standards in that speak specifically to that. We also added information on where sites that are storing only manure contaminated runoff, such as these settling basins, where it's a short-term storage. The design capacity now says, the rules now state that any liquid manure storage area that for a site that has 1,000 animal units or more has to be designed for 9 months of storage. Well, a settling basin where the runoff water is only going to be there for a day or two shouldn't have to be designed for 9 months of storage. So we've added requirements for that. And then we've also added language that says the designs in the plans and specifications that are submitted by the design engineer, all assumptions that are used by the engineer to develop the design have to be included in the specifications. With that, I'm done. Any questions?
Are there any questions out there for Kim?
Are you awake?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion or question over the, let's see, the having new animals again in shoreland. I can't remember what slide that was. I think we covered it kind of. There was a change there.
This one. That one.
Yeah.
Okay, how about if between you and I, Sam, we kind of put something together and we can send it out to everybody?
Okay, that sounds fine. That'll give us a little bit of time to draw the comparison and explain it in a way that makes sense versus trying to punt a little bit here today.
This is Tracy. I had a question related to that. I always understood that if the county wrote it into their ordinance, that if it's new, then it's not allowed. And if our definition tells what our definition of new is, we can pretty much just continue to say no, new, if it's the new definition. Because we can be restrictive.
Go ahead, Kim.
The way it works is that if we have requirements and the county has requirements for the same thing, for the same action, whichever requirements are strictest are what is to be followed.
Okay. I wasn't sure if because this was geared from a statute, if somehow that would trump the county ordinance. It was specific to that particular line 2 of that location restriction. Okay. Yep.
How is that any different? Sam, this is Richard here.
Yep.
How is that any different than the DNR rules, I know that's a rule thing, and I know statute it does go over rule. But if it's more restrictive, for no new feedlots in shoreland, and definition of a feedlot, where it's defined down to even one animal, or potential to that, how would that play in a factor?
If it's a state rule versus a state rule, it's whichever is strictest.
And a county can always be more restrictive. They can't be less, but they can be more.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not worried about going more restrictive. I'm actually looking at saying, okay, if the DNR rule says no new feedlots, basically all the changes that you're referring to for anything that's in shoreline that's greater than 5 years, they can't do anyways because the DNR rule says no.
Okay. Well, we'll look at that, Richard, too, and add that to our comment that Sam and I will put together.
The next thing that I actually had on as a question mark was in reference to when there's referring to MPCA's policy regarding new animal feedlots, just any new animal feedlot within shoreline. Mm-hmm. I understand what the MPCA's current policy is, but if a person wanted to be less restrictive than whether it be DNR or what the current statute reads, right now, even with the verbiage, I'm just going off of the way the verbiage reads right now, technically, if I go off of and not use policy but use rule, I would have to restrict any new animal feedlot, regardless of size, if it's considered new by definition.
Right.
Why wouldn't you change that within statute as well instead of just leaving it as a policy?
Because we can't. That statute already exists, Richard.
Yeah.
We can't change statute. It's in 116.07 subdivision 7G.
Yep. We
can't change it. That's a legislative change.
Okay.
For statute. And so, go ahead, Kim.
I was going to say, okay, if you look at the rules, what it states is that in this, that there cannot be any new facilities in shoreland. And where the problem came in is that then when you look at what a new facility is, in the definitions, a new feedlot includes a site that was existing previously and has been unused for 5 years or more. And where the change that came in is that if they've had a feedlot, the statutory change is about in areas where they have had a feedlot in the past. It doesn't matter how long it's been since there's been animals there, they can restock it. But in restocking it, if they're going to create a pollution problem, they need to resolve that pollution problem, and they also need to obtain any other permit that is necessary.
Would that be like an exemption under the definition of new animal feedlot as well then?
It'd be a lot easier if we could have the rule in front of us, and we can't share that with you yet to have this discussion. But I think we're missing some pieces and parts, Richard, to be able to have a good explanation and a good discussion of this that would answer your questions better. And so I think what we'll do is Kim and I will sit down and figure out what we can put together to answer these questions as wholly as we can at this point in time and give them a good explanation, because I think right now we're just causing confusion. And that's definitely not the point of what we wanted to do. So I think we will come back when we can share more, or when we can put this together where you can actually see what the changes are and correspondence to what the existing rule language is. I know it's a little premature, and it was kind of a yes, no, should we do this, should we not do this? And we decided to give you the information that we could, but at least to keep you in the loop as much as we can with the rulemaking process. Kim, did you want to elaborate any more on that, or?
No, you pretty much summed it up. It's kind of what we had thought going into this, is that, you know, this is going to be hard to do without the actual, having the actual rule changes in front of you. But
yeah,
and I apologize for that. It's frustrating, I know. If it makes you feel any better, our own staff only just got the copy of the revisions last week, 2 weeks ago.
We did have 2 other questions that came in, and maybe we can shoot at these a little bit, see what we can do. One was, can you elaborate on the excavation of bedrock?
What do you mean elaborate?
I'm thinking maybe give a brief. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
What I wanted to know is that when you're excavating out a pit and then all of a sudden you encounter bedrock, is that what is affected, or is it that predetermined by soil borings that we're going to excavate material out? Are they both affected by that, or?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And basically, what the rule is going to say is that you submit your plan to the NTCA for, you know, you request that, you know, this is a change to the design, you know, your design requirements or whatever.
But what if what if you're excavating and all of a sudden you find a little bump out of rock that's not a major, you know, issue, but you need to excavate maybe 5 dump truck loads out, and then that's it? I mean, is that going to have to go back to design at that point, or go for approval to MPCA?
Well, it would definitely be at a minimum, it would be a call to one of the feedlot engineers.
Okay.
So that, you know, we can at least, you know.
And that'll spell it out?
Yeah.
That'll be spelled out in the rule then?
That really isn't spelled out. That part isn't spelled out in the rule, but it's
there'll be guidance on it.
There's there's guidance and whatnot.
All right, thank you.
So the other question is, if a total confinement building is constructed for under 1,000 animal units, they do not technically need a permit unless they want protection under the Clean Water Act. So this is about permitting and whether or not the site less than 1,000 animal units would need a permit to construct.
Anyone who's constructing anything over 300 animal units has to apply for a permit. So if they are constructing one for between 300 and 1,000 animal units, they have to apply at least for a construction short form if it's under 1,000 animal units, and or they can request, if they are within the CAFO, if they meet the definition of a CAFO under the federal rules, if they want to have coverage under the general permit, they can request that permit.
All right, then there's a request for a copy of this PowerPoint. Are we able to share this, Kim?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Kim at this point in time? All right, hearing none and seeing none.
I was going to say, but if you think of anything later, or even once you get the rules that are in front of you and it's on notice, although it says, you know, call these other, sending your comments and questions and whatnot to this, our funky new Feedlot rule web email address, you can contact me directly. Just give me a call or shoot me an email.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. We appreciate you taking the time and going through the rules. Even though we don't have everything we can share, it I still think it's beneficial to at least keep you guys in the loop through the process as much as we can. So I'm going to steal the ball back from you, Kim.
Okay.
All right. And then when I send out the recording, I will also attach Kim's PowerPoint presentation to the recording for your reference. And Kim and I will attempt to come up with an explanation for kind of the shoreland stuff and all that good jazz. So there's our next agenda topic would be going on to talk about the Minnesota Cattlemen's Association, which we already talked about. But if anybody has any additional questions about that, please feel free to throw them out and I will answer them as able. We do have Don here as well to talk about any registration updates or questions. Don, would you like to take the floor and give us any comments or any input that you have in regards to the registration process?
Yes, I would like to do that, Samantha.
It's all yours then, sir.
It is? Okay. Do I have the viewer on me here, or what do I need to do?
There's no camera.
Would you like it?
No. No, I'm just in t-shirt and jeans today, so not looking my.
Oh, he's got khakis on.
Yeah, I do. I got my official.
And his golf shirt.
I got my agency uniform on here.
Oh.
Well.
Would you like the ball to show them anything on the computer, Don?
No.
Okay.
I think I can just verbally. What I'd like to do is just do a check-in on how you guys are doing with the re-registration duties for this year. The one being just the re-registration requirement itself, and the other one being this kind of this shoreland verification assignment. So those two pieces related to registration. And I checked with about 4 or 5 counties last week, and my reaction was they're all that re-registration is going fine. It looks like a lot of people did an initiative, kind of the spring or early winter initiative to get the registrations, re-registration forms out to Feedlot owners, and are getting them back. And so that sounded like it was going fine. And also, everyone I checked with had had done their shoreland verification checking with each registration record to see that the shoreland data is correct on the on Delta. So this so what I'm talking about, it could be like beating a dead horse. Like you guys have heard enough about it already, and we don't need to keep going over it. But we do want to make sure that that you have the tools that you need to do the job. That if any of you have any questions about how you're going to go about getting these assignments done, or what other people are doing it, their techniques, we could use this time for that. Let's see. I guess with those.
Please feel free to chat in as well, and I'll speak for you if you don't feel like talking today.
So, is anyone having any problems as far as with either one of these two with these two requirements here, or these two projects for this year? The one getting all your feedlots re-registered, and the other one verifying your shoreline information.
I am not seeing anything.
Okay. Let's see.
We've got a comment that says that we have all our shoreland up to date and registration on track for getting done.
that agrees with what I've, from just kind of the survey I did last week, calling it random. So nothing more to say than, geez, I can't do better than that, and really appreciate. We were kind of worried that this thing would kind of linger to the end of the year, and because funding is dependent on keeping good registration records, it does have some implications. So that's all I have. Just to say, great going.
And they're asking the final date for having this information taken care of in Delta and registration done.
February 1 is the date that has been set, that you must have your re-registration, all your re-registration work done, all your feedlots for the 2014, January 1, 2014 deadline. All that work must be completed by February 1.
And it has to be in Delta by February 1?
In Delta, right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate that. I did want to show folks one more thing about registration and kind of another plug for our training page. So if you see on your screen, I've got the PCA homepage up. And hopefully, if you click on water and feedlots, the little cow, you'll get to our feedlot homepage. On the left-hand side, it says Feedlot Program Training and Events. On this page is where we have been putting the WebEx recordings, as well as some of the tutorials that we're developing. If you haven't had an opportunity to go see this, this is our first one that we did. It's how to enter registrations in Delta. It's only 12 minutes long. So if you haven't gotten any of your registrations in and you're thinking you don't remember it all, there is WebEx on how to do it. Just like when you've watched meetings, this works the same way. You just click on it. I think Kathy had an opportunity to watch this. Kathy, did you have any comments on it for the group to hear? Good, bad, ugly?
Yeah, I went through it yesterday, and I found it it was very to the point, very easy to follow. You did a very nice job, Sam.
Well, thank you. I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I want these to be out there so it's quick and easy. We've got a lot of CFOs that the feedlot work isn't their only job, of course. Well, every CFO, that's not your only job, but there's some of you that this is a very small portion of your time. And so you're not in Delta on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. So some of these will hopefully be a good tool to go back and take a look. And there should be, hopefully, prior to the start of, in the beginning of July, there will be an open lot agreement one, I believe, and then a how to log into Citrix and Delta one. So all you need is the internet, and you should be able to watch these. All right, we had one other question come in that says, this is for Don, and what is funding based on? February 1st, question mark?
Okay. The next award, a base grant award you'll receive will be for will be considered the 2014 base grant award. And that will be coming to you somewhere in August or September. That award will be based on, will still be based on 2010, your 2010 registration, feedlots eligible for funding data. Beginning in 2015, for 2015 funding, which would be a year from now, that will be based on the data that is in Delta on February 1. And, I mean, we're making it sound as final and arbitrary as possible so that people are done at that time. If there's a reason that you can't get it done, you absolutely will need to let us know 6 weeks or 2 months in advance that for some reason it's not right. So again, your next grant award, your next base grant award will be based on current numbers, probably be almost the same award amount as you got last year, because Scott County is no longer delegated. That money now will be distributed to the rest of the counties. So they're just a little bit, they'll be getting a little bit more. And for 2015, you will be getting, it will be based on the re-registration results for January 1, 2014.
And Don, would you give a brief plug for the mid-year reviews as well, just kind of a reminder of when those need to be taken care of by?
Well, I guess our goal is to have those done by the end of July, and because we've had some assignment shifts here within the MPCA program and stuff, I think some of our staff are probably contacting you earlier, and I'm going to and try to get those reviews done sooner than later. But you should be hearing from your assigned MPCA staff at any time.
Okay. Are there any final questions that anybody would like to ask, or any issues in your county that you want to pick brains on and share? Give you a minute or two to decide if there's anything else out there. If not, I think we're about ready. Go ahead.
This is Kim. We're showing where, click up where it says Feedlot rules on the left-hand side of the web page of our Feedlot homepage.
Yes.
Click on that.
There we go.
Where it says Feedlot rulemaking, you'll see there's the Feedlot rulemaking, and then click on the Feedlot rulemaking webpage. And once everything goes unnoticed, this will be webpage will be changed on the day we start the public notice, and it will include all the information you need to know about how to get access to the draft of the rules and the sonar and how to make comments and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to show you that too.
Thank you. And I just sent you a link on the chat box to this page. If you open your chat box in WebEx and click on the link, it'll bring you right there and you can bookmark it. So you don't have to try to go digging for it if you don't want to. All right, with no further ado, thank you everybody for another wonderful WebExing experience today. It has been a pleasant experience after our technical difficulties. I will go ahead and send out Kim's PowerPoint and the recording of the WebEx. Thank you for attending our June 2013 WebEx. Bye-bye.